Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. And by the way, if you're disenfranchised by Google, YouTube like I am, especially with all the latest privacy concerns from the CIA monopoly that is building AI machines and wants to dominate the world, you can actually watch this video that you're watching right now on DTube, which we will have a link in the description below and will be shortly up after this video. If you don't know what DTube is, it's a decentralized cryptocurrency-backed social media network that, doesn't censor, hinder anyone questioning the status quo. Anyway, it seems like the news is mainly dominated by natural disasters right now, especially with Hurricane Irma devastating Caribbean islands and flattening homes as we're speaking right now, as it's making its way towards Florida, and wildfires are devastating the West Coast at the same time. But since we're seeing an oversaturation of news coverage on national disasters, I wanted to make this video about the end of the US petrodollar, the poisoning of our food and water supplies, more great news for the military-industrial complex, and a stunning move by the FDA that soon may cure PTSD with ecstasy. We're also going to get into the bigger truths of the Utah nurse arrest that happened just moments ago that everyone was talking about, plus a lot more. But let's start today with some great news for the military-industrial complex, as Donald Trump has just announced that he will sell South Korea billions of dollars in weapons, loosening the restrictions on South Korea's maximum payload for missiles, leading of course to more US arms sales, which is one of the biggest growing profitable businesses in the United States. We're also finding out today that a lot of these great military contractors are getting access to Donald Trump through a secret golf club membership through his private club. A new list revealed lobbyists and CEOs paying millions to get access to the US president, and yeah, that is not a surprise. That's how business is done here in the United States. This is why Donald Trump got rid of all the outsiders in his administration and replaced them with, just the corporatists, people from Goldman Sachs, Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, and I could go on and on and on. And we have been seeing the effects of that with Donald Trump ramping up defense spending, while other less profitable ventures, well, they're not that interesting. Now, of course, this latest economic boom for military contractors comes mainly due to the latest news of North Korea, which, as we uncovered in this YouTube channel, you're not getting the full truth about. Like, the fact that North Korea wants to negotiate on nuclear weapons, but the mainstream media does not find that important to tell you. I mean, it's pretty clear right now to anyone paying attention, especially if you've been following American foreign policy, the main thing that's keeping the US empire alive is military supremacy and the US petrodollar. And any country that questions the US petrodollar or makes economic moves against it, like say Iraq, Libya, Afghanistan, Syria, Iran, China, Russia, and others, for some reason, those countries are seen as a threat, or they're actually invaded and destroyed from the inside. It should be a well-known fact, but it's not. The only reason the US is the main dominant superpower in the world is because everyone is trading on dollars, especially with oil. But ever since we've seen the latest headbutting between the United States and China, especially with Donald Trump threatening the countries who do business with North Korea, aka China, we have seen a very significant move by China that will affect the US dollar. Just days ago, China launched a plan for crude oil future contracts priced in yuan and convertible into gold in what analysts say could be a game changer for the industry. The article that broke this news said that, quote, China sees new world order with oil benchmark backed by gold. With China being the world's biggest oil importer, this allows Russia and Iran to circumvent US sanctions by trading in yuan, which they could turn into gold, which would reset the world's reserve currency system. This is a major game changer that directly cuts out the US dollar, and we have already seen the economic effects of this news with the US dollar falling shortly after this. And to show the United States that they mean business and that China will not allow the United States to invade North Korea, that this is just an escalation of conflicts that have been happening between the United States and China for many years now, China has now held a military exercise to, quote, supposedly fend off a surprise attack along the North Korean border, showing their military prowess and of course doing more saber rattling. Now, we've been covering the US petrodollar for a very long time since it's key to understanding US foreign policy and not what the mainstream media tells you to believe. We made a full comprehensive video some time ago talking about when the Chinese decided to have their currency, the yuan, backed by gold, which we saw as an escalation to this bigger economic war that's happening. And now, with them deciding to trade oil with that currency, the bigger question has to be asked, will this bring the end of the US petrodollar? And in short, after my research, I don't think that's quite yet possible unless the Chinese are able to establish a better relationship with Saudi Arabia and break the US-Saudi alliance that has been working in cooperation with each other ever since Henry Kissinger was able to work out a deal with Saudi Arabia that has them trading and selling oil on the US dollar. But I would expect some kind of economic hit on the US dollar and its purchasing power. And now, moving forward with other, hopefully happy and positive news. Oh no. We're also learning in the United Kingdom that traces of 123 pesticides, including those linked to cancer, hormone disruption, and damage to the brain development, have been found in fresh produce supplied to primary school children through a government scheme aimed at promoting healthy eating habits. Now, ever since factory farming was introduced to the world, we're seeing more pesticides used in our fruits and vegetables, which is a way for a lot of these big farming companies to make more profit, have less food waste, because less food is being eaten away by bugs, and in exchange for that, there are some damaging effects. That's not really good news. Well, at least we have water, right? Nope. As we're just finding out from a new study that tested tap water all around the world, that are showing how billions of people globally are drinking water contaminated by plastic particles, with 83% of samples found to be polluted. The United States has the highest contamination rate at 94%, with plastic fibers found in tap water sampled at sites including Congress buildings, the EPA, Trump Tower, and other locations. Now, of course, plastic in water creates an estrogen mimicker and other, just hazardous, damaging effects on your human body. And now some good news. If you have some post-traumatic stress disorder, well, from your food and water supply being poisoned as people argue over statues and other meaningless, mimical things that have no effect on your life, well, the FDA just granted a breakthrough status for ecstasy with its effects on post-traumatic stress disorder. Ecstasy was actually used by the FDA in trial runs on roughly 200 to 300 patients with severe post-traumatic stress disorder, with results that showed a remarkable improvement in most patients, with 61% reporting no post-traumatic stress disorder symptoms after 2 months, and 68% of the patients being PTSD-free after a year. And now the FDA is proceeding with a third breakthrough trial run that actually may make it legal to have medical ecstasy to fix and cure post-traumatic stress disorder on the market. But personally, I don't really trust the FDA since, they're okay with the party drug ecstasy, but not marijuana for some reason, which still denies medical marijuana to U.S. veterans, even with their own government studies showing how legal marijuana is reducing the number of teens who use marijuana, the number of convictions, and of course addictions. But that probably has no connection at all to the prison industrial complex being a big business in some states arresting people for using the plant. Which gets us into the next story in a very nice segue of the Utah nurse that was recently arrested denying police officers at a Utah hospital to draw blood from a patient without a warrant or his consent. She, of course, was assaulted and arrested for following the law, and now we're learning from a whistleblower police officer what could have been the real cause and motivation between this unlawful and disgusting act committed by the Salt Lake City Police Department, as we're learning how the police in Salt Lake City, Utah, are forced to make 5 arrests a day. Now, this is a very personal issue for me, especially living in New York City, seeing this unwritten quota on police officers to write tickets and arrest people that I have seen personally lead to gross violations and misconduct by police officers. And yeah, I was a victim of that too. I got arrested and ticketed for the most obscene offenses, and I've seen people who are in New York City get tickets because they have a coffee on the subway. I've seen people dragged to court because they walked into Central Park at midnight. I've seen people fined and ticketed for moving too fast in the New York City subway system or riding their bike on a sidewalk countless numbers of times, and this personally pisses me off. Because as we know, the job of a police officer is already extremely difficult dealing with some of the worst aspects of our society. But to make that situation worse by establishing quotas and pressure on them should make it very clear to everyone watching that there's a direct correlation with generating revenue for the state and sending people who don't need to be there to jail, which is another booming business inside of the United States, since we have more people are incarcerated here than anywhere else in the world. This could be one of the reasons why this police officer who violated the law most likely won't be facing any charges. And now hospitals like the one we've been highlighting in Utah have to set up a policy where they ban police officers from contact with nurses after the latest disgusting video in Utah came out. So yeah, that's the news for the day. I hope you found it useful to be informed about this stuff. If you did, subscribe, stay tuned. We're going to be covering more important news here on youtube.com/WeAreChange, which of course is a fully independent news organization that's run by you and your donations on wearechange.org/donate. Without you dudes and dudettes here contributing, I would not be able to do this job. And even though this job is difficult sometimes, I really appreciate the opportunity to be here for you. And that's why I always end my broadcast by saying, I love you. Thank you.